All right. So welcome to all of our friends that are here on the live. So great to see each of you. I have a big smile on my face. I am excited to be here with you tonight. I am going to post the inspiration in just a minute to the chat window, so you have access to that. I'll give you a brief overview of the supplies that I'm using tonight. Always with our classes, you're welcome to use whatever supplies you have on hand. I like to make things nice and accessible and easy for you. I sometimes paint with watercolors. I sometimes paint with acrylic paints. Fall landscape, foliage is our inspiration. I'm just gonna save this to my desktop and I'll upload it to the chat window here. Tonight I'm using acrylic paints like I usually do. I have an array of colors. And I'm not using any fancy supplies really. I just have an array of brushes, small, medium, and large, like I usually do. And I have lots of different colors of paints next to me. I have red and yellow. I have a couple greens. I'm not sure what I'm going to be using yet. I have some white and I have some black. If you have an okra would be a great color for tonight. So I might go grab a little bit of okra. So just your basic colors. I'll grab a blue here in just a minute. Blue would be good. Any color blue would work. It could be a blue lake. It could be a phthalo blue. As long as you come in with the basic colors, we'll mix and blend here together. In addition to your paints, you'll also need a plate or a palette, just something to mix your colors on. So I will put this right here next to me. I have a pencil here that I may use for a little bit of sketching. On top of, I'm going to do a underpainting of like yellows and ochras and maybe a little orangey to bring in some brightness from the background. Oh, we have Miss Jill joining too, which is really fun. And a cup of water to rinse your brushes and a paper towel for all those messes. Something's going to happen. We all know that, right? Bound to get messy in some regard. But I cannot believe that we're already in October, ladies and gents. It's unbelievable. I think this was like the fastest September ever that has gone by. I am really excited to do this inspiration with you tonight. I called it Full Foliage. Some of you chimed in and you shared your interest in painting like a New England landscape with a barn and some foliage colors, maybe a stone wall and some cows. So I found this really beautiful inspiration that I'll upload again since Jill just joined. Excuse me. That it has just a little bit of everything. So I want you to personalize this landscape and this scene to the things that you like. So Susan likes sheep. So Susan, if you want to put a couple sheep in this darn field, you do that, right? And Jenny, if you want to put in purple flowers, you do that, okay? So this is for you, and you all know that I always encourage you to do your own thing. So just incorporate your own flair along the way. I'm gonna go and grab an ochre really quick, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So one of the things that we're gonna do is we're going to try something new tonight. Now, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but I always love bringing in something new to these classes. We're going to try a little bit of underpainting. So I'm going to paint the whole canvas like yellow and orangey color. So I'm just going to mix maybe a little yellow. I have a little ochre right here. I'm going to keep it fairly light in color. So I'm going for like a yellowish orange. So think of like a sunset yellowish orange color. That's what color I'm going to paint the whole background. And I'm going to mix that color on my plate first. To make like a yellowy orange, it takes just a tiny touch of red to give it that orange tint. And yellow, basically. And I'm just going to use a big brush of choice. Excuse me. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow here. And you may
Megan, did you use a brilliant red or?
I did use the brilliant red. Yep. Right. Yeah, the crimson would be fine too if you have that. But I'm just going to take a little bit of red on my brush. And I'm just going to see what color I get. I kind of want it to be fairly light. This ochre made it pretty dark. That's okay. I can lighten it up. So this is like kind of a dark mustard color right now, which is a little bit too dark for me. Maybe if I add a little bit of white, it will lighten it. So just always take a couple minutes just to find the colors that you want. Again, the color I have in my head for this background is like a yellowish orange. So if it's too orangey, just add a little bit more. Now I'm getting to like a pumpkin kind of color. How fitting. I want it to be a little more yellow. So I added a little bit of white to lighten it. Mine's like a light pumpkin color, kind of like a pumpkin cheesecake color. That kind of sounds delicious, doesn't it? I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow to it. And I'm gonna paint the whole background this color. And whatever I get here is gonna be fine. And if I want to use a little bit of water, and I'm actually painting on a canvas tonight, which is really fun, a canvas panel. So I'm just gonna paint the whole thing. And this, you can be as messy as you want. I'm gonna dip my brush in a little bit of water. Ooh, it's getting lighter with my water. We're not going to see hardly any of this. So this is just a colored underpainting. And I wanted to give a little bit of education around the benefits of underpainting. I found a really cool description, if I can find it. It probably disappeared for me here. Of course it disappeared. Well, I'll talk. Oh, here it is right here. Okay, so underpainting is an initial layer of paint that artists use to establish the foundation for a painting. So I'm reading this. This is not my own words. There are many purposes of underpainting: defining color values, creating depth and dimension. Underpainting can add depth and dimension to a painting, establishing composition. Underpainting can help an artist establish overall composition and values of the underpainting, which is really kind of cool. Underpainting can also create a consistent color theme for a painting. It can help create texture. It can help with the layout of the painting, which is really cool. So I'm just doing this nice and smooth. I'm just dipping my brush in a little bit of water. Underpainting can also help you overcome hesitation. Sometimes people do underpainting to eliminate the fear of getting started. You're just getting something down and then you're going to paint on top of it, right? So that's kind of neat. So there's a lot of benefits of this. The reason I wanted to try it for tonight is because we're incorporating lots of beautiful fall foliage colors, and this beautiful backlighting of the bright foliage, the brilliance of foliage here is just going to look really cool with this underpainting. Now there's a few different underpainting techniques. They have several listed here. I am not formally trained as an underpainting artist. So this is just something fun and new that I do sometimes, for play, recreationally, but I thought it'd be fun to try tonight with our overall theming. And mine is a little wet. I'm gonna give it a minute to dry, but it can have streaks in it. But I'm just filling this in at my leisure, and I'll give it a minute to dry, and I'll talk through some of the details as we get going here. And if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But again, so glad that everybody's here with us. There's so many different ways of painting on a background. I'm using quite a bit of water. I don't know if this is probably a mistake here. It's going to take a full minute and a half here to dry with this water on it. That's all right. All right, so I'm doing some nice smooth brush strokes from the left to the right. And if you have little lines, it's okay. You're not going to see much of this at all. It's just going to be this incredible little extra detail. And as this is drying, I'll pull up an artist that I just think is, if I can find her online, I think she's absolutely incredible, and I should have pulled her up before, but she does underpainting for all of her work. And her style inspired me to try to incorporate some of her approach for tonight's picture. Her name is Mary. She's fairly young and she's incredibly talented. I follow her on Instagram, and she uses underpainting and kind of a segmented approach for a lot of her artwork. And I just really, really love her work. I can't afford to buy any of her original artwork. It's that good. She knows how to price it. She's earned her experience here. Let me see if I can find her really quick as we are letting our artwork dry here. See if I can find her through a quick Google search. Fingers crossed I can find her really quick. I'm just letting my painting dry, and I'm just gonna try to find her online. And if not, I'll post it on our Patreon page so you can view and appreciate her work.
Megan, my canvas was so wet, I took a paper towel and
It
wiped the
smudged
whole
it.
thing. Yeah, and it actually is working real well.
I was thinking about that, Jenny. That's a great technique and a great tip. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
grab a corner. I can't find her right here. I'm nuts. I'm just doing a quick search. But yeah, you could take your paper towel and you could just like, you could smudge it around like this. Totally fine.
yeah, it's helping it to dry quicker too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And it doesn't even matter. This is actually really fun. I love it. We haven't done a ton of smudging backgrounds in a while for
Oh,
our paintings. But this is a beautiful color. Awesome. Yeah, that works great, Jenny. Your fingers may get yellow and it may be
no.
all my desk, but that's okay. That's the best thing about acrylic is I can wipe it right off my nice desk and it's all right. Most of us are painting on our dining room table or one thing or another here, right? Anywhere goes. Except Sharon probably has a cute little TV tray that she has all her paints lined up perfectly. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the inspiration. Awesome. And this is drawing, but if you wanted to grab your pencil and do a little bit of sketching, it may help you ground yourself on the composition. So it's the framework of the composition. So where I may start is, as I look at the inspiration in the chat window, the bottom 2/3 for me are like a big field, right? It may be a field with bushes or flowers. I'm going to try to stay to like shrubbery. I'm not going to get too crazy down here, but I am going to put a line on where I want my field to end and where I want to put my barn or my house. So I'm going to do a line right about here. It doesn't have to be straight. And I may just do a little bit of a sketch for a little bit of a barn. Or a little house. Let me just. So there's different kinds of barns. So you could do like a little bit of a T or a little bit of a roof for a barn like this. And a little bit of, that peak on the roof here. If you wanted to sketch some of this, you could. You can kind of sketch your little barn. Maybe I'll put a little cupola on the top of my barn. That might be fun. A little weather vane, who knows? So there's my little barn. I'm just holding a shape for that. And it might change, that's okay. Other elements are that I'm going to sketch is there is a tree line. So sometimes we do a lot of work in our classes where we freehand our tree line and by painting it in, and we freehand our mountain range. One of the things I'm going to do in tonight's class is I'm going to freehand a little bit of a tree line with just a little bit of a scribble for the top of the tree line. Now I'll push down a little harder so you can see it. And I'm using a light hand So this is kind of a whole forest of trees here. And I'm going to have this just kind of continue behind the barn. And I'm going to put a mountain behind this. And there's a reason why I'm doing this all right now. Maybe if I want to do 2 tiers of mountains, I can. So play with what you want your elements to be. And I'm not doing the big trees on top yet. I'll do those after. Play with what you want that kind of faux tree line to be, right? Think of like clusters of trees all next to each other. Kind of looks like a cloud a little bit. Here, I'll bring it a little closer. There's a method behind my madness, I promise. Okay. And then if you wanted to do a little bit of a winding road, you can come out, and then in. Anything you want, if you want to hold space for a winding road. I'm just having fun with it. So anything you want to sketch, feel free. I may sketch a little bit more. I may sketch a little bit of bushes in the foreground here. Just some high bushes. And I'm kind of alternating one side to another. I'll bring this down a little closer so you can see it. And I'm not doing any lines on the bottom. And there's the method to my madness and why I'm doing all this detailed work now. So I'm really just imagining what I want my composition to be. I do like the idea of doing an animal as well, but we can kind of start at the top and work our way down. So I'll give everybody just a minute or two to play with some of this sketching. Erasing with underpainting doesn't work well, by the way, except mine's wet, so don't erase. And then we'll go ahead and get started with some of these details. And if I can find that artist, I'm going to try to incorporate some of her work if I can. I think she does oil painting. See if I can find one. She's all over my Instagram, but of course, when I'm searching the web, she's not going to show up. It's okay. So I'll give everybody a minute and we're going to switch and start painting in just a moment. Yeah, I don't know where she is. Oh, here she is, Mary Benson. Praise be, everybody. Okay. So I want to show you this, and I want this to inspire you, maybe. Oh, goodness. Hang on, it's asking me to log in. We don't want that. Not everybody's on Instagram. I'm just going to save this image. Mary Benson. I'm just going to upload it to a chat window so folks can take a quick peek. I love, love, love her work. This is one of the most incredible things is we get inspired by artists around us. So if you want to take a look at the chat window and take a look at her work, really beautiful stuff. So I'm going to try to incorporate some of this style into the painting tonight. Give me a thumbs up if that's come through for you. Cool. All right. So that's a little bit of inspiration of how we can incorporate some brightness. So let's go ahead and jump in and we'll do the sky, blue, and we'll jump in and do our mountains. So the mountains will be a little darker and the sky is going to be like a lighter blue. So I'm going to go ahead and take my plate here and do a small touch of blue and a little bit of white. And I'm just going to clean off my brush really well. And one of the things that Mary does as an artist, and I think it's really cool, is she leaves a little bit of like an outline in between each of her elements, which really kind of, I think it's really quite neat. So I'm just going to make a nice sky color of my choice. And it could be, you could have it be a little gray if you wanted to. It could be on the lighter side. It's absolutely up to you. And you can play with how much. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap. And have fun just filling in and painting your sky. Maybe dip your brush in a little bit of water. Now, if your background isn't totally dry yet, you can pump the brakes and let it dry. I'm getting a little bit of green, but it's okay. I have a little bit of water on my brush, so no big deal. But I'm just being really playful and open tonight. I'm not just painting my sky a regular blue. I'm really playing with how I can incorporate some of this brighter yellow undertone painting too. And I'm leaving a little bit of a gap above my tree line, above my mountain line. And fill in your sky any way that you wish. Mine looks streaky and it's okay. I'm going to use a really light hand and just play with blending my colors. I have some water on my brush, that's why it looks a little streaky. And it's okay. I'm just kind of running through it with a really light hand. And I can let it dry and I can add some more paint on top. That's no big deal. No problem. One of the most important things when you paint is to not stress. It takes a lot of conscious effort to not like worry too much when you paint. And that's one of the things I think we all start to kind of practice and realize in these classes is that we have notions that we're supposed to do something a certain way, and we don't have to do things a certain way. We can try new things. It gets us out of our comfort zone. There's a lot of certainty and there's a lot of, consistency, most of the time in our lives, and it's good to mix it up a little bit. Especially if you get inspired by another artist. I know many of you have gotten inspired by other artists before, or colors or compositions. My sky looks a little green on camera. It's not, it's a little more blue in person. So I'm just gonna let it dry. I can see a little bit of the yellows coming through. I'm just gonna clean off my brush. The mountains are fairly dark, so I'm just gonna, you can figure out what color you want your mountains to be. I'm also gonna use a smaller brush for these next round of mountains. I'm just gonna put a little bit of black on my plate. So at any time, use whatever brushes you're most comfortable with. I'm gonna downsize because these are smaller elements. These mountains are smaller elements compared to that larger sky. And I might just take a little bit of this black and bring it into some of this blue right here and play with making like a grayish blue mountain range. You can decide if you want dark purple mountains, you could do dark purple. That could look really neat. You could do dark green mountains. You choose. This is a bluish gray. I can start here. And I'm just letting the sky dry and I can always go on top of that again. Now I'm going to include a little bit of a gap where my mountain and my sky is. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. I'm gonna do the same thing where this tree line is. Now I could use a really tiny brush to do like lots of touch-ups after. I may do that. And I'm gonna go around my barn. That's why we painted the barn. That's why we drew the barn. I'm gonna go around my barn, leaving a little bit of the yellow gap. behind my, around the edges of my barn. And if you did 2 layers of mountains like me, leave a little bit of a gap in between the 2 layers of mountains. And again, if you don't want to do this style that I'm doing tonight, you don't have to. I'm just kind of coaching you through my approach. Excuse me. And again, if I don't like these colors, if I want to change something, that's fine. I can play with the underpainting color of yellow, and if I want to add any, I can play with moving the paint around to add additional depth or lighting to different areas of the mountain. You can see I'm moving it around a little bit. Play with that. You can put a little water on your brush. You can go slow, use the tip of your brush. Oops. And I'm just going to do the second mountain here, and I'm going to leave little gaps. And I can come in with a smaller brush and do more detailed work if I wish. But I'm just being playful. Am I exactly sure on what this is going to look like? No, it's not a little spontaneous of us. We have to just go for it and try something new. So I'm just filling in these mountains. If you want to put a little water on your brush and play with how that underpainting is coming through and some brighter patches, you can do that. A little water could help you move that paint pigment around. I'm going to paint all the way off the edge. And it's quite neat, actually. Quite neat. So I've kept that outline on the top of my mountains, and I've kept the outline around this tree line that I've created and around the barn. So I'll leave that little gap that I'm holding in all these areas just to see how this goes. And I love my sky. It's turned into this like turquoise blending of like watercolor movement. And kind of fun. So I'm going to leave that for right now. And my mountains have a little bit of a brush stroke to them. I'll bring it closer so you can see it. It's kind of neat. Really quite basic. Nothing fancy going on over here. So the next thing I'll have you consider is if you're going to be adding in any pine trees overlapping, I'll call it our foliage woods here. I want you to outline your pine trees. So if you wanted to continue with this technique of outlining, your pine trees they can stand out a little bit. So for me, I'm just going to use my pencil and I'm just going to outline some pine trees. So I can do my pine trees a different color. So maybe if this is a little extra sketching, and if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. But I'm just going to draw in what I want my pine trees to be here. And I'll zoom down a little bit so you can see it. This pine tree is a little wonky here. That's okay. I'll fix it. So I might just do, oh, I don't know, just a couple clusters. Maybe they can be tall and pointy. They can be more wide. I'm just roughly freehanding these just to hold space for that glow essence that I'm playing with tonight of our underpainting. So I'm just drawing in a couple trees here, and then I'll just do, maybe I'll do a couple bushes next to my barn, because maybe I'll want to do a little bit of glow there, and maybe I'll do a little bit of a tree here. And I'll do a little bush here. So you can make this as busy or as simple as you want. But the reason I'm putting in these pine trees is because I'm going to do my foliage colors on these big kind of clusters in the back. So I'm just drawing in a few of these trees just to hold space for these to be a different color, if that makes sense. So I'm going to let this dry. And then I'm going to do the fun foliage colors in the back. So I'm just going to start at the top and kind of work my way down. So the fun foliage colors are like oranges and reds. So we have this really fun orangey color here. I have a little bit of red. I want you to paint in and fill in these foliage colors, any colors that you want really. Just grab a small brush of choice so you have control over your brush strokes. Ooh, so pretty. And you can be as abstract or as pragmatic as you wish. I'm just going to have fun. I don't have a plan. My plan is to, just get started. I'm going to incorporate lots of different foliage colors. And I'm just doing little brush strokes. I'm leaving that gap here at the top. I'm just doing tiny little brush strokes with this like reddish orange color. And I'm leaving that yellow gap in between my layers. And I'm just having fun. Any way you want to fill this in. I'm just doing little dabbing techniques, playing with the colors. I'm kind of going back and forth from my yellow to my orange. Play with how they're blending with one another. Go around these trees, if you have trees that you just held space for. See how these colors are just slowly fading into one another? That's what we're seeing. I don't know how your trees look like where you live. And most of you live in foliage country of some kind, I believe. But play with adding a little bit of these blood orange color. And I'm just doing a gentle dabbing to give a natural texture. And this is just so much fun. We don't always do a technique like this if you're new to these classes. This is a fun and different one. And this is just another example of how we play with color, how we apply color in different ways. And I'm painting around these trees that I just drew in. Change brushes if you need to change brushes. You're going to paint around your barn or your little white house, whatever, if you included in a building of sort. Take a couple deep breaths and enjoy this process. This is not stressful. This is really fun. Try grabbing different colors, different oranges, different yellow, like a mustard yellow maybe. Excuse me. And I'm just doing little dabs. It's kind of filling in between the lines a little bit. That's where sometimes doing drawing and sketching, it allows you to focus on filling in the color in a unique way. Since you already kind of structured the composition by drawing, right? But these are beautiful, maybe maples in the distance that are creating this tree line. And if you wanted to do like a little bit of that lighter color down towards the bottom, you could. I did that unconsciously. Maybe I did my oranges and reds towards the top. Maybe I made it a little lighter at the bottom. It doesn't matter. But I'm just gonna fill this in. I'm just doing little dabs to give it texture. Sorry, I keep zooming in and out. I'll zoom it up a little bit. Maybe I'll zoom it down. Let's see. There we go. You can see it. There we go. And then I'm just gonna keep that, maintain that yellow breaking line from each object. And to get that kind of smattering kind of foliage look, alternate from one color to another as you're kind of adding in. It's like it's like a texture perspective of adding lights and darks, using the dabbing of your brush. I'm going directly near the lines for the pine tree. I'm not going like directly on it. I'm going right near it. So it will leave a little natural gap. And I can always go in and add more paint. I'm really just doing the first pass just to see what it looks like. And then I can go in and I can play with it a little bit more. Now tonight's painting is really, it's detail oriented. So we're gonna buzz through as quick as we can. But I wanna make sure we have a lot of the foundational work done. And then if you wanted to spend extra time after class, you could. Excuse me. I feel like with tonight's painting, we could certainly spend a lot of time on all these details, especially with the underpainting technique and the layered details is really quite fun. I'm using the tip of the brush just to get little leaf tips. Just using your imagination. Art is always open for interpretation. Most of you probably think I'm crazy most classes, but it's all good. As long as you show up and you be yourself and you're open-minded to what happens, you're in a good spot. But I love that we did the underpainting on this one. I think it's a great addition. I'm finding my little gaps in between my trees and my bushes over here on the right side. I miss some areas. And I could get a really tiny brush and come in here and do some fill-in detail work after if I wanted to. But this is a really good start. So I'm going to zoom back a little bit. Maybe I play with adding, if anybody wants to try this. I'm mixing a little bit of a more orangey red color here. And I might just do a little bit of red kind of detail work, just kind of tucked in maybe on the tips of some of these, my faux trees here. You can come in and dab in secondary colors, right? For your foliage. I love when a lot of the trees here in Vermont are changing from the green to the red right now, and the leaves have green and red on them. It's so pretty. So pretty. So I'm gonna let my little foliage trees dry. Again, it's perspective there. I'm just gonna zoom this up so you can see that there. I'm just gonna let it dry. It's not done, it's not perfect, but I can add to it and modify if I need to. I'm gonna shift and keep moving. I'm going to do like a forest screen for the trees, these pine trees. So I'm just gonna grab a little Faleo. If you have a grass green, that's fine. Actually I have a light green right here too. The light green is probably better, but I'm gonna mix like a forest green. I'm just gonna mix a little bit of black and green together. So I'll bring this and do this with you here. So I have a little bit of green here. I have a little Faleo too. Faleo is a little bit more of an emerald. Either works, and a little bit of black just to darken it. Now in the picture, they're a little grayish. So if you want to have a little bit of a gray tone to your trees, you could mix a little bit of white to give it a gray tone, but just take a minute and find a color that you like. Oh, you've gone and done it, Megan. You've added too much black. Goodness gracious. And I'm going to use whatever color you decide it's going to be for these trees. And again, I'm going to leave some of that gap. And I'm going to use a small brush of choice. This isn't the smallest brush I have. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm just going to be really gentle and careful. Just going to use the tip of this brush. To do just a few, and I'm using the bristles on the edge, and it's actually working out pretty well for these trees. I'm trying to leave a little bit of the glow around these trees. That's just something I'm being mindful of. If you don't want to have that outline everywhere, you don't have to. It's just something I'm trying tonight to do something different. I'm going to do the same thing down here, and I'm going to leave a little bit of gap around the bush that's next to the tree as well. Again, I'm just doing something a little different. And if I don't like it, I can go around everything again and manage and manipulate. So you can make the call on where you leave gaps. But sometimes it's fun painting a different way. It's incredible when you use a different part of your brain. And sometimes it's hard to do on your own because you're not used to doing something that way. So it's kind of it's unique to give it a shot if you're interested. And I'm just gently using the tip of this brush. Again, I talk about in these classes, we get to know our tools and we play with the tips of our brushes to figure out, well, how small can I get in there? Do I need a lot of paint on the brush, or do I just need a little bit of paint on the brush, right? Those are all the conversations we have in our heads as we paint. And if you don't paint that often, you're probably thinking, you know, I don't know what the heck she's talking about. Well, that's okay. But we learn a lot about ourselves as we paint. I'm playing with keeping just a little bit of a gap here. I'll bring it closer so you can see it. There's a little bit of a yellow gap, which is quite fun. We don't really do it that often, but it's adding a little bit of an extra glow with that underpainting. And I'm just using green, dark green paint and just the tip. This isn't even a fancy brush. This is just a normal, this is a number 2. I'm being very careful with the end bristles, and that's the details that I'm paying attention to as I paint.
Megan, did you mix black in your green or?
I did. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a little bit of the phthalo, a little bit of the light green, and then a little bit of the black, and I ended up with this like it's like an army green in person. Yep. So I'm gonna let those dry over there. For me, I think they look great. They look really cool. I love the outlining details that we're doing. I'm just gonna shift over to the other side. In these classes, I know that we all work at different paces, so always just take your time, go at your own pace. For these trees take a lot of patience and a lot of practice. Try doing short stint branches. The more uneven your branches are, the more natural your trees will look. Trees take a lot of practice, so just don't beat yourself up too much if you're playing with your trees. Pay attention to how much paint is on your brush, which part of your brush bristles and your brush are you using. Again, I'm maintaining that outline. Again, for me, that was something I wanted to try consistently in tonight's class. I'm talking about it again for you to consider. It's not a requirement. Let me plug in my light here. There we go. So I'm just working my way over here, on my way in. Again, lots of little details. This is a little time consuming, but sometimes it's fun playing with the details. And I'm keeping a little bit of the yellow break in between some of my trees too. If you happen to kind of paint over that yellow break, don't worry. You can always come back in with a little bit of paint and kind of recreate that if you need to. It's really hard to maintain that, especially when you're doing your little branches, but just do your best. So I'm really painting with just the tip bristles of this brush. And maybe you find a different brush that has some more pokey kind of bristle tips. That might help you with a tree, like tree texture. And right now I'm painting the tree just a single flat color. If you wanted to incorporate multiple colors into your tree, you absolutely can. I'm not gonna go that far into detail tonight. But you're welcome to if you wish. So there's that tree, and then I have a bunch of little ones here. I went a little tree crazy. That's okay. I'm committing to the tree, so I'm taking my time here. I'm just using, I have little loose bristles on the end of this brush, and it's doing its job, giving me that make a natural edge for these branches. All right, and I have some bushes. And as you go towards your ground and you go around your barn with any of the shrubs, just keep a little bit of that yellow buffer as a gentle reminder. If you want to have some of that glow appeal kind of come through, try to maintain that buffer. Again, totally optional. You can always go back in and add it again if you need to. I'll probably have some touch-up spots. That can be done at the very end, though. But I love that we're creating this beautiful scene. I love the foliage. It's really coming to life. You can see I added some more reds and oranges to the tops of my foliage, and I have more yellows down to the bottom of my foliage line. It just really draws in the depth. And I think the underpainting is adding a lot of really beautiful detail to this night. A little bit of that glow that we love about autumn, that we tend to forget about sometimes, unless we're outside at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we can see it and feel it, right? How do folks like this so far? You can give me a thumbs up if you don't want to unmute, or a Megan a thumbs down if this is just really hard. All right, cool. So I'm gonna let my shrubs and my little trees dry, and my foliage forest is still wet, if that's any consolation for any of you. And I'm just gonna keep working my way down. And I have a very important decision to make around, is this gonna be a red barn, which it probably should be, or is it gonna be a white house? Now I know that Jill is here, and Jill was saying, or one of you, I think it was Jill, I like the white house too, or I like the red barn. So I have to make a decision here. I'm probably gonna do a red barn because I don't do red barns that often. So I'm going to, excuse me. I just Googled red barn and I have a browser up, and I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm just gonna outline some doors in with my pencil. So I have this, the roof line I'm happy with. I'm gonna do a large because I want to maintain the yellow on the barn too. That's a kind of a fun technique for me to try. So if that's there, I just drew a rectangle right here for the barn door. And I'll probably just do like an X. I don't know how this is gonna go, but I'm just gonna do an X through the middle of the barn door and see how it's gonna go from there. So I just did that to keep it simple. I might do a little window, a square window on the top part. And then I might do 3 little windows on the side of my barn. You can decide what you want to do, but the reason I'm doing this is because I want to try to maintain some of this yellow outline as I paint my barn red. And the barn roof goes out the back. So I'm gonna paint my barn red where it needs to be first, and I'm gonna hold that yellow space, and then I'll paint white on the windows and on some of the barn door frame, etc. Now, the barn for me is gonna be red, but I'm gonna put a little bit of my crimson on my plate. And I'm just gonna grab a small brush of choice. I'm gonna paint the barn red. I'm gonna maintain the yellow outline around the barn. I'm just gonna see what color red I need first, and I'll let you know on how it paints over. So you wanna have a small brush of choice. I mixed crimson and red and like a brilliant red together. I did not add any white. I'm gonna go nice and slow. I have my hand resting on the canvas, so my hand in painting has more stability. There's a lot of different ways to stabilize your hand. Find a method that works for you. Sometimes you can use your pinky. Sometimes you can just, if your canvas is dry, you can just rest your hand on your canvas. I'm gonna gently and try to paint in between my barn door design. I'm not sure how this is gonna go, but we can give it a shot. The reason I did it this way is I'm gonna try to incorporate a little bit of the yellow that's underpainting into the barn. I could just paint the whole barn red and then just do the white detail, but I'm trying to do something a little different tonight. I'm trying to still maintain a little bit of the outline and glow for the barn detail. I'm not sure how it's gonna go, but we can try it together. If you don't want to do it my way, you don't have to. Just kind of painting little red triangles for some of the door detail. I'm gonna keep it easy like that for now. And I'm gonna slowly shift to the main barn area. Now for your barn to look structurally stable, you want it to be as much as rectangular as possible. Straight lines is really important with a barn or a house. Even when you're filling it in, it's good to do nice straight lines where you can. You can see I'm trying to maintain this yellow. I don't know how it's gonna look. If I don't like it, I can paint right over it, but I'm just gonna see how it goes. Little cupola, I'm just gonna paint around, up and in. especially around the top of the house near the mountain. I'm maintaining some of that glow around. Again, this is just one technique. We don't always do this. So it's fun to try something new if you are interested in such. But I think it's really fun so far. It's very detailed, but fun. In the back corner of your barn can come out a little further than the edge of the barn. So if you wanted to give it a little lick off the back here, you can give it a little bit of a point there. Back here on the side. Excuse me. Now I'm going back and getting a little more paint. I'm spinning my paintbrush on my plate. Go back and get more paint when you need it. I feel like when I've done barn paintings in the past, I've felt rushed. It's a nice treat just to slow down. Oh, my roof is getting a little bigger. I just made a smudge. That's all right. Kind of neat how the barn is standing out. I'll take that for right now. I like how it's glowing. It's a little bit of a different look. I am going to come in and add a little bit of white detail, a tiny touch, and the glow and that brilliant underpainting with a little bit of white on the barn should still make it stand out quite nicely. But I'm going to let the red dry entirely before I add any of the white. My little cupola here. And then we'll just let it dry and we'll keep moving our way down. So fun. All right, I'm going to keep us moving along. We're at 7 o'clock. We've made a lot of progress, ladies and gents. All right, so we're going to keep moving along. This next part should go a little bit faster. You can figure out what colors you want to bring into your field. So I'm going to do browns and oranges into my field. What I want you to think about is any additional elements that you want to bring into your field that you need to sketch on first. So that may be ducks, it may be a cow, it may be a stone fence, etc. Right now I have some of these pencil drawings here for I'm gonna do some green. So see where I have the green trees in the back. I'm gonna do some green bushes here. But I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do oranges and browns in this field like it's fall, and maybe I'll incorporate a little bit of green too. I haven't decided yet, but I'm gonna draw a cow. So everybody wish me luck. Everybody give me a little prayer here. I'm going to draw a couple cows. Cows are boxy, and some are gonna be in the distance. And where's gonna be maybe one in the foreground. So the ones in the distance are gonna be easy. They're gonna be like little boxes with little legs, right? So I have a pencil and I'm going to do some black and white cows. It's gonna be a nice little addition to the cows are gonna kind of start right here. So the cows for me are just going to be, I'm going to start with little rectangular bodies. And I'm going to add a little ear. Hang on, I'll come down a little closer. My first cow is going to be over here. So they're little rectangular bodies. This is his face. And it might take me a couple minutes to draw a cow, but there's a rectangular body. Should be a little longer. The front of the cow is a little longer. And then I'm just going to put in a couple of little 2 legs in the front. And then a couple of legs in the back. And he's got a little tail. And the head's not perfect, but I'll play with the head and his little ears. So that's my cow. His legs could be longer, right? So the legs are going to be a little longer. Okay, there's my cow. Kind of looks like a dog. It's okay. And the ears will come out. Now, cows can be in lots of different positions. Maybe there's going to be another cow, but it's going to be laying down right here. And he's just got a couple of ears coming off. This cow's going to be laying down. It's his arm. It's his body. Yeah, that cow's laying down. Much easier cow laying down. And then another cow can maybe be here. Again, their ears. You can play with their heads. Maybe there's another cow here, a little wider, and then some legs coming down in the front. So you can play with your cow shapes. I'm doing a couple cow shapes here so you can kind of pick and choose. And I'm not painting them right now. I'm just filling them into this space. So there's a couple cows in this space here. This one's lying down. This one's kind of head on. But I'm painting the cows in so I can paint around them in the field. So there's a couple cows. I'll put another one over here. Maybe another one's facing us head on. So just take a couple minutes to draw your cows. This one's, and the body's a little wider on top and it's a little more narrow. They could be sheep. These could be sheep too, Susan. Definitely could be sheep. I could just paint them white, you know?
Oh, they're gonna be sheep, okay.
Sheep are easier. You don't have to do black spots on them. Well, actually, sheep have black spots too, don't they? You turn these animals into anything you want. So I'm just adding a little bit of a country flair to this. I'm going to do another cow. Maybe I'll change the position of his body. And again, I'm going to paint around my cows. That's why I'm doing this right now. This cow is going to be laying down because he's very tired. Maybe it's going to rain soon. I don't know. And I'm just sketching these. He's got a little tail coming off and he's got an arm laying down. Oh, he's got an arm coming this way. I'm not worried about their arms yet. So there's another cow. So I'm staggering my animals, okay? Very intentionally. Reason I'm getting these animals in here is I'm gonna start painting at the top and working my way down. So I want you to figure out, do you want anything below this tree line down? I want you to fill in your objects because we're gonna paint in the background of this field first. So let me figure out if I want to add any other animals. I think I'm just gonna leave those cows as is. And I'm just going to start painting in the background here. So I'm going to find a color of choice. You can start with a lighter color in the distance and kind of work your way down and get a little darker. I'm just going to mix, I'm going to find a brown color. And if you wanted to do green for like green grass, that's fine. I'm just going to consider foliage style colors. So I'm going to mix a little bit of a brownish orange just to see how it goes. So I have a little bit of green here. And to make brown, you can mix red and green together. You can also grab a little bit of yellow and be playful. This is like dirty brown, dirty field brown. I'm not sure that's the color I want, but we can play with that here. All right. Yeah, it's a little bit better. So I'm going to come in, and if I want to change this color, I can, but I'm just gonna, and maybe I'll mix in a little bit of green too, but maybe I'll do a little bit of brown back here by the barn. I'm leaving that yellow gap. Since this is a field, I'll probably include some green here where my cows are. I'm gonna leave a little bit of a gap under my trees. Maybe I'll do a little bit of this brown on the underside of my road here. We're just painting and filling in now. I will incorporate some green grass colors, but brown is a very natural part of a field, right? A lot of the corn has just gotten cut. Everything's starting to die off a little bit. It's a little sad, but it's our scenery that's changing before our eyes. And I can bring in some green into this brown. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit for you. Have it zoomed in pretty closely. And I'm going to go around my road. I'm going to leave a gap around my road. I might bring in some green right now while I have the brown on my brush. Maybe I use a little bit of water on my brush. And if I don't like this, I can always change it. I'm not really too worried about this right now. I'm getting some brush strokes because I mixed with a little water, but that's fine. This is a really fun way of blending one color with another. I'm doing smooth horizontal brush strokes here. It's helping blend everything together. I'm playing with mixing a little green and brown on my brush. I'm going to go around my road. I'm going to leave that glow, that yellow underpainted glow around my road, just like I did in other areas. Play with how you blend and bring in colors here. I'm being conscious of blending browns and greens. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. If you want to be more like yellowies, you can. I'm going to bring in more yellows down here on the bottom. And we may have a part 2 of this class. I don't know what you all are thinking, but maybe we continue this as a second part of the video. Maybe I do that on my own on the side if folks are interested in that, so we don't feel rushed with our time tonight. So maybe I'll do a part 2 of our video of our class if folks are interested. Even a recording. You tell me what you think.
I like the idea of part 2.
Okay, cool. Let me know. Because I feel like, I mean, we're at 7:09. We're okay.
Me too,
Yeah, I
Meg.
think we might need a part 2.
Yeah,
Me
there's a lot of details, but it's kind
Me
of, I think
too.
it's worth it, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's worth it for where we're going with this. We'll take your time. Don't feel rushed. I'm going around my road. But I love what's happening here. You see these beautiful blends of color, of browns and greens. It's really quite fun. And I'm coming close to my cow friends here. I'm maintaining these nice, smooth, horizontal brush strokes because I'm in a field. Now I'm going to give my cows a nice green field to lay, and I don't want them laying in, you know, those fields they spray. I don't know if you have that in Vermont and where you're from, but Vermont, they spray our fields with some lovely things. And, you know, we're going to give these cows a little bit of green here. And this is a little bit of a dark green, but that's okay. But I'm painting around my cows, maintaining that glow of the underpainting around my cows. And I'm putting a little water on my brush, painting around my cows. Try to have a little bit of that glow, using the tip of a small brush just to dance around those cows, kind of painting in the green field around them. You can get in between their legs, great. I'm gonna do a little bit in between their legs. Not gonna worry about that too much. A little bit of an outline around our cows. Dip my brush in a little bit of water to move around some of this paint. By adding in a little bit of water, it allows the underpainting to come through a little bit. Kind of adds a little bit of that natural yellow or that glow in the field without bringing in yellow, which is kind of neat. I like, adds a little bit of depth and brightness. Now, any other colors you want to bring into this field, feel free. I'm playing with my greens and browns right now, but you feel free to experiment where you wish here. You can see the colors I'm using over here. I'm just slowly doing those nice, smooth, horizontal brush strokes. I will paint my road a lighter color, like a gray, like a light gray. I think that would look really nice. But I'll do that after. Yeah, maybe I'll look at the calendar, and we'll schedule a part 2 just to finish this with a little bit more ease. And if you can't attend the part 2, you can always watch the recording. But it's worth going over some of these details. And I'll do it as a bonus class for us. So when I paint my cows, the glow around them will stand out. Right now, they kind of look boxy a little bit. And try to maintain those horizontal brush strokes to keep our fields nice and even. There we go. My cows are sheep. I don't know. I like the idea of the black spots though. I like cows. Actually, brown and white cows are pretty cute too. I have a farm right down the road from where I live, and they have the most adorable cows. They have the brown ones, they have the black ones, they have all the cows, and I don't know all the cow types. Otherwise, I'd tell you there's probably some Jersey and all that in there, but they're so cute. I love they have a little bit of everything. I'm like that crazy person that pulls over with their car and like rolls down their window and talks to the cows because they're just so friendly. I'll say it's for the kids, right? Say it's for the kids. But they're really friendly animals, so it's kind of fun. So I'm having fun bringing in a little bit of the grays, I'm sorry, a little bit of the browns and the greens into the field. For me, it's very fall. And in the inspiration, they have lots of browns in their field, and that's absolutely up to you. I'm gonna get a little creative on how I continue these colors down. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet, but I'm talking it through with you so you can think about what colors you may want to use and where. But I'm just maintaining those horizontal brush strokes. And I'm painting around my cows, leaving a little bit of that golden edge, a little bit of that border. So my cows will stand out for me. This cow looks like a baby cow with a big head. I'm not sure what happened to this one, but I can fix it, I hope. All right. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know, but I'm sure you're all doing great. Miss Jean, I'm curious if you're gonna go totally off the cusp tonight. I'm sure you're sketching your design away. Jean sometimes does her own thing based on our inspiration, which is so fun to see your work. And I'm curious if Jenny's incorporated any purple. It would be surprised, Jenny, if you haven't incorporated any purple yet. Susan's probably going to put a black cat in there somewhere. That wouldn't surprise me. Or Sharon, rather. Sharon, black cat.
I have my sheep.
Yay!
Is it show and tell?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, look at that. That's so fun. Here, I'm gonna I'll unpin myself for just a minute and remind me to repin my spotlight. There we go. Very cool. Susan, awesome. Yeah, if anybody wants to show your progress. Very neat.
Yeah.
Oh, Sharon, nice job. Oh, Miss Kim, beautiful. Look at that house. Tremendous.
Jenny. Jenny.
Jenny, nice job. And here's Miss Jill. Jill's is work in progress. White house with a red barn with a red roof. Jill, your mountains look great. And Terry, your trees look really cool. I love your foliage trees. They came out nice.
I'm gonna do a couple of grouse or partridge.
Ooh, tremendous. I love that. I love everybody's are so different. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know why, but I should probably know that by now. I know I'm going really slow with regards to how quickly I'm working my way down. Some of you are really doing well with your color. I'm also using a very small brush, which takes longer because I have these teeny cows that I'm painting around. These teeny little cows.
Megan, how do we make brown?
So one way of making brown is red and green mixed together.
Yep.
Another way of making brown is red, yellow, and blue. So all kind of colors mixed
Okay.
together. And the yellow really helps give it that color too. So if you have more of a red or an orange tinge or a green tinge, add a little bit of yellow and it'll make it mucky for you pretty quick. So I'm working with a really small brush around my cows. That's why it's probably taking me so long to work through this step. But I want everybody to fill on the bottom as you wish. I'm going to use some darker green contrast here for some just shrubs that are going to be in my field. But I'm going to continue to work in some of these browns. Maybe I'll bring in some of these golden colors from the foliage. So it's absolutely up to you. Again, when we paint, we like to bring one color from one area to another. So feel free to consider what colors from the top you may want to incorporate in the bottom. You don't have to do that. However, it's for consideration. But if there's any questions, you're welcome to use the chat or unmute. Tonight's class is super detail oriented. Everybody's having fun doing it. I'm almost done my cow area and I'm going to switch to doing some of this green, darker green shrubs in this space in just a minute. But I just want to paint around some of this field. I'm going to go around some of the shrubs to maintain that glow. So here, and I'll do the same thing here. And I can always change this edging if I need to. The other thing I like working from the top to the bottom is my hand isn't smudging into everything, which is really nice. It's kind of drying as I go. I'll come back in and do some white detail for my barn in a few minutes. I will do that before we wrap up. But I'm just going to come in and finish this field for my cows, and then I'll come into the next detail with you all. But if everyone's at their own pace, really working on their own details, I would encourage you to check in and say, am I using a brush that is working well for me? Should I change brushes? I'm going to move to a bigger brush because I am away from my cows now, and I can be a little bit more footloose and fancy free because I'm not going to paint on top of my cows anymore. I'm going to come down to this green line here. And then I'm going to switch to my darker. I'm going to add a little bit of a darker green in here again. So I'll do that. I'm going to mix a little bit of the darker green again. And I'm just gonna come in and I'm not sure what these are gonna be, but I know that I want to incorporate a little bit of darker green. Maybe it's just some bushes in the foreground here. I'm being a little open tonight on what this object may be. I'm letting art happen. But I'm bringing in this darker contrast like I have up by those pine trees. And this is just a dark green. And I'm leaving this golden border for this under painting to have that edge glow. And maybe this is a little knoll or a little notch in the field where it's a little hill. Maybe that's what this wants to be. And I'm just going to slowly fill this in. I'm using a little bit of a lighter color to fill it in. And I can use the underpainting as well. Sorry, this light is really bright. Let me turn that down a little bit. I can use the underpainting to really bring in some of the yellows underneath. So it's fun to use some of the underlying coats to bring in an object to life. To add a little bit of that extra lighting. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing, but I'm just going to fill this in as I see fit here. I'm just going to do the same dark edge. I think this is a little hill. I'm creating a little bit of dimension with a little bit of a hill here. But I like the darker green contrast. It reminds me of what's happening up top with those pine trees. And I'm just using a dark green. And the top of this hill is a little darker for me. And I'm just going to do some horizontal painting to fill this in. Otherwise, this field's going to be a solid color. The other element that I'll just talk through as we're working on this is there are flowers and there's texture painted on top of these background colors. So I just want you to consider that. You can put things on top of this after. Like these white little flowers, etc. Just know those are additional details you can add in if you wish. I will probably add in something here and there, but I'm just playing with the background, like the field textures, the field colors first. Okay, so I'm just going to slowly fade one area to another. So you can see I'm bringing in just a little bit of the greens and browns, kind of going from one peaked area to another. And these peaked areas, these like little hills that I've notched into the field. So I'm just going to do those little notched in hills. I'm just going to paint all those first right now. Because I have them all outlined and marked. So I'm just going to come in and do some of that work. Because then I can come in and I can fill around them. And I like having a little bit of a darker edge at the top. So some of these little hill crests, you may or may not do that, but you can use darker colors or lighter colors to give the depth techniques, right? So the darker edge is a little bit more shaded. And I can bring my other greens and browns in and around these little notches in the field for me. So that's just my approach for tonight. Again, you can incorporate your browns and your greens in any way that you wish. But these are elements, these are main elements in my field. So I'm really getting these nice and concrete in color before I do my other surrounding colors. So my surrounding colors are like the browns and greens around my cows. So I'm doing these darker colors first for these little peaks. And these are elements, right, that we talked about. And then I'm going to do my other field colors around this. So if you have any other elements that you want to draw in or hold space for, you can use your pencil at any time or paint those elements in, and then you can bring your rest of your field colors around, like as a consideration, like I'm doing. So it's absolutely up to you. Some of you already have done that. So just continue doing what you're doing. I'm just talking through that though, if you wanted to add any other elements. And you can add wildflowers on top of the field colors at the end. So that's don't worry about flowers and things. I would say animals or a hill, or if you want to add like, you can always add like a shrub after too, if you need to. You could always add these on top, but for me, I wanted to maintain some of that edging, that glow edging, without having to repaint over it. So there, I have some of those, the fields area in. Let me see if I want to add one more here, maybe. And then I'm just going to fill this in with the rest of my field colors. Now, some of you may want to, you can always incorporate tall grass. So if we do a part 2, you can incorporate tall grass. I'm bringing in a little bit of water to soften the edges of some of these, which is kind of neat. You can see how it's picking up on some of the lighter undertones, which is kind of fun. So maintaining those nice, smooth, horizontal brush strokes. Kind of fun to use a little bit of water here to soften one layer to another. Again, I did not plan on any of this tonight. It's really fun to see how it's coming out. I love that we're incorporating some browns. It's the time of year where it's such a natural color, and the greens really make it look quite natural within the field setting. And if you don't like the colors, you can always paint on top of it, especially if you're using acrylic. I'm gonna now bounce back and forth between browns and greens, maybe even a little bit of yellow here and there. And maintaining that gap. The yellow could be interpreted as like a straw, right? Or a lighter part of the field. So I'm bringing in a little bit of like the yellows from this yellow here that I use even for the background color. I'm using this to kind of come in the bottom of my greens. I have this really pretty brown color. I'm really just being open to bringing whatever colors make sense for me. But I love just being playful and blending one with another, letting it dry. If you wanted to use a paper towel to smudge, one color to another, you can do that, certainly. Again, I need to be conscious to maintain the glow around each of these little hilltops that I've created. Don't go a little too crazy here, Megan. Slow down. There we go. There we go. But I hope everyone's enjoying this. This is so different and fun for us. And I'm not sure when my family's arriving back. For anybody that doesn't know, I have a little baby. Lucian is 4.5 months old, so he is still very needy of mommy. So there's a chance I may have to run when they get back. But I will schedule a part 2. If you have a certain day or time that works for you, I would love to continue this. I mean, we're fairly close to being done, but I would love to even spend a little time painting finishing the cow detail together. Again, if you can't join, it's fine. I'm happy to save the recording and share it with the live group. But you can see how this foreground's really starting to come together. I'm gonna do a white road, but I'm just using greens and browns right here. And I'm again gonna maintain. If you need to mix more colors along the way, you certainly can do that. Oh, baby's sleeping. We all get a few more minutes. My husband just got home. He's like watching quiet. Hi, Asher. I have a 5-year-old too. Asher, you want to say hi to our friends?
Hi.
Hang on, they can't see you yet. You want to show them? Say hi.
Hi.
Don't mind my
Hi,
messy
Asher.
house. Asher's 5 years old. He just had a birthday.
Oh, so
Happy
sweet.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Birthday, sugar plum.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I need like 5 more minutes with them and I'll be right upstairs. Okay. Thank you. Asher says bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Asher.
Oh, there he is. All right. So ladies, for folks that are joining live, or the recording, don't mind my family interruptions. I would encourage you, take your time here. I will schedule a part 2 to do some of these other details with the barn and the cows and the road. And maybe some of the final, if we do wildflowers, like a tiny little bit of flower detail. I'm not gonna go too crazy because I think we've just put in so much beautiful work. I don't want to take away from this fall scene. Let me take a quick look at the calendar. For the recording, I'm just going to pause the recording. If anyone's watching this and you're watching the recording, feel free to check the YouTube channel. I'll be posting a part 2 video soon for you to follow around with our next steps. All right, welcome everyone. We are here doing our part 2 from our full foliage landscape scene. So glad that you are here to join us for the second part. I'm not sure how long this is going to take. We're just going to kind of feel it out, but I wanted to finish at least some of these details with you. Some of the details that we have remaining from our picture is filling in. For me, I didn't finish filling in some of the bottom background here, so I'm going to do that first. But you can see I have cows that need to be painted in. My road has not been painted. And then any touch-up work. So with any art project, you can do as much or as little as you wish, but I wanted to at least complete some of these main details with you so you had the information in front of you to complete yours as much or as little as you wish on your end. Now, this is my palette from the other night. I am going to use a large to medium sized brush to kind of remix some of these colors. So we did our yellow and orange kind of underlay. Mine's a little more yellowy in this light. And I'm just going to finish doing a little bit of green and a little bit of brown in some of this space to kind of fill in this field-like area. So to do that, I'm going to mix a little bit of my green. And that was a light green, maybe a little bit of my ochre, which is kind of a mustardy yellow. And I might just play with these two to see what it gives me. Now, I had some browns in there too, but I might just start with these two to see where it gets me. And if it's a little bit different of a color, it's okay. Yeah, so it's very similar in color. You can play with applying a little water if you want to. You could always use a little bit of a paper towel to blend. I'm again maintaining a little bit of that buffer around some of these bush-like elements. And I'm just going to play the bottom of this element here. I'm just going to bring this green up and in. So I want you to finish your field, all those basic background colors of your field should be filled in. And this is a little bit more of a green color. I can see brush strokes. I can see the yellow undertones coming through. I'm going to decide as an artist how much of that I want to include and how much of that I want to change. But I'm just going to take it one step at a time. Your art is always changing and evolving, and the colors you use can do the same. So just always take it with a grain of salt. And if you wanted to, with acrylics, it dries pretty quickly, right? So if you wanted to add different colors on top, even of the work that you did in part 1 of this class, you can do that. Now the recording that you're watching, I'm merging and blending part 1 and part 2 together. There we go. And I am going to mix a little bit of red while I'm here because I wanted to have a little bit of brown coming in. And I'm mixing green and red together to get a brown-like color. So here's red and a little bit of green. And I'm using the same plate just to be resourceful, but you can always get a new plate too, which I'm sure many of you have. I'm going to add a little bit more green to this red to turn it to be a brown. Now, if I want it to be a little lighter, I can always add a touch of white to make it a light brown. But this is your field. Your field can be all green. If you want to have brown, you can. Mine has a little bit of yellow in it. I'm going to probably add a little bit of white to soften it. If you want to add a little bit of yellow, kind of like it's like a cornfield. I had a really fun idea of like making corn stalks. And then I quickly realized how long that would take me to add corn stalks all over. But I like the idea of it. But if you want to spend, like 4 or 5 hours, making corn stalks, feel free. But I think that would fit this well. So that's way too dark for me. So I'm just going to lighten this up a bit more. And I can always, take my paper towel and do a little smudging. For me, I want to have it a little bit more green. So it's okay to realize that you don't want mud in your field. Maybe you don't want mud like this is pretty muddy. I want my field to be more green than this. So I can just kind of wipe some of this paint off. And this is just a really cool example of knowing if you paint something and you want to change it, it's okay to make a change. You can wipe it off. You can let it dry, paint over it. Lots of options. It kind of matches above, so I can kind of do some wiping. There's a little bit of green wet paint from behind here, so I might just do some smudging and see what happens. And maybe I'll put some more green paint over that. But I'm not worrying about it. No, we're definitely not worried about it. But I do want to add some more green down here, so I might let this dry for a minute since it's watery. And I'll clean up my brush. Now, while that's drying, I might jump up and do some white on my road. If you want to keep working on your field, you're welcome to, but I'm just going to shift and let that dry, and I'll kind of work my way back down just to be mindful of time. So I'm just going to put a little bit of white paint on my canvas, on my plate here. And I can use a small, tiny brush. A small brush of choice. Let me do my road first. I might do my road a little bit white, and then I might add some gray to it. I haven't decided ultimately. Maybe I make my road a little brown. Who knows? So I'm just going to play with a color here. And the thing with the road is it's all about dimension and perspective. So it's more skinny back down towards this barn door. And then it gets a little wider. So just take your time. Now, since we're painting on top of yellow, you're going to probably need a couple coats of paint. So I'm going to keep this nice and bright and I'll do a couple coats here. But just getting some of those base colors down is a good thing. And I'll play with how much of this glow of the yellow that I leave around. I haven't decided how much or how little of that I'm going to leave. But I'm just going to get the road color down first. Now, the white I'm using isn't a high quality white. It's actually pretty thin. That's why it's not going on very well. If you have a higher quality acrylic paint, it'll probably go on a little more thick. But it's okay. I'm just going to hold and maintain a little patience as this goes on. You can barely see it because I'm painting it on top of the yellow. And this isn't even my normal white. This is actually another one, another random white that I picked up. That's okay if you have a white that looks like this. It's going to take a couple coats. I could look around and see if I have another white paint as well, which I likely do. So you can see I'm just filling in my road. I didn't even fill my road in. We just kind of held space for it before. Just filling it in with a basic color. This is a good opportunity if you need to reshape your road, you can. I included just some fun twists and turns. It may not be incredibly realistic, but it's fun and playful. So I'm letting this dry. I'm going to come back in. I'll do another coat, but I'm just doing some nice smooth brush strokes. It's your choice on how much of this yellow buffer you want to leave around your road, how much you want to fill it in. I'm just kind of rolling with it. I'm going to let that dry. Now I'm going to see if I have another white handy because I want to put a little white on my barn. I do have a better white right here, I think. Let's see. All right, let's see how this white performs. This one should be a little bit better. A little more thick. Let's try that. And I just grabbed a little bit of a different white. And while my road is drying, I'm gonna play with where I want to add white for my barn windows and the barn details. Now I know that I want to do this X on the barn. Oh, that's much better. This white has a little bit more density. Oops, this one. So you can do any of the barn-like details. Here's the barn door. I might just outline like the window frames of the barn in white and see what that looks like. And maybe leave the inside of the windows glowing. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like that or not, but I'm gonna try it. So I'm outlining little, and I'm using a small brush of choice. So everybody's gonna be at different places in our class, but these are just details that I'm gonna walk you through. You can select what details you want to add to your painting or not. You want your windows to be as straight as possible. Mine are not perfect. It's okay. It's all for fun. I'm going to leave the inside of the windows, that background yellow. I'm going to outline the barn. With a little bit of this white. My cupola. I'm going to outline the roof. Straight roof. The roof point on this left side, see how it comes out a little further than the barn itself? This is a technique that you remember the more you paint barns and houses, that the peak comes over, it overlaps that straight edge of that far left. So that's something that you remember over time, the more you paint buildings. But I'm just doing a little gentle outlining with my white here. I'm going to put a little detail on the cupola just to see what that is. I could add a little weather vane on the top if I wanted to. All right. And I'm just going to mute myself. I'll be back in just one moment. All right, so I'm just using this white. And again, take your time with these details. I'm using try to do a steady hand Nice straight lines. Take your time. I'm kind of doing the main exterior posts of the barn in this white. And if you don't like it, you can always paint over it. Like if you don't want it to be this, have this white outlining, you don't have to. But on the left side of the barn, I'm just gonna have that. And I'm gonna have a little bit of an overhang on the right and the left. And I'm gonna probably outline this little window on the top with white. And I'm gonna leave that yellow glow inside. I'm just gonna see how that goes. I'm just gonna leave it. Now my cows are also gonna be white and black. So I'm probably gonna paint my cows white and then do black spots on them. So I'm just gonna, since I have a small brush in my hand, I'm just gonna paint my cows all white. Cows have long, skinny legs and rectangular kind of style bodies. If you need to make their legs longer, sometimes that helps with cows. Their bodies are a little more narrow towards their back hind legs. They may have a little tail. This looks like a calf. And I'm just painting their bodies white. Now you can see my pencil and you can see some of the yellow around it. I can always take some green if I want to and kind of touch up around this cow. I'm just gonna see what happens. I'm being really open-minded with this style of this yellow glow. I'm just gonna leave it the way it is for right now. And I'm just painting all my cows a little bit of white. I'm kind of painting their head first and I'm painting the bodies around them. So if you wanted to leave like a little bit of a gap, like if you wanted to leave some of that pencil showing, you could, it's up to you. So I'm just painting their head and their ears. I'm gonna do them all white and then I'll add some eyes and add those spots. Now you could do brown and white cows. You could do, this cow's head needs to be a little bigger, I think. You can reshape your cows as you're painting the white in. Again, I'm painting around the head, so I'm not blending everything together, just so the head stands out a little bit. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I'm just being playful, really, with how I paint these cows tonight. And I don't hate the glow around them, but I'm just gonna see how this art happens. Let's just see how it goes. And cows' faces can be a little boxy towards their jaws and around their nose. And check yourself if you need to use a smaller brush. Feel free to grab a smaller brush if you have one. Two white coats of paint on these cows is going to be a good thing. It will really help them stand out. So we will do 2 coats. I'll suggest you do 2 coats of white paint on your cows before you do the black spots, unless you have like a really high quality paint. This paint's a little better, but even 2 coats, I still suggest it. But that's okay. We can let the first coat dry and kind of keep working our way around on lots of these details. And again, some of you may be working on your road. Some of you may be working on your grass and your fields, filling in that field area. You just go at your own speed, do whatever the area that you're on. I'm gonna let my cows dry. I'm gonna come back and work on my road for a minute since I have better paint. And in the inspiration, it was fairly whimsical with like a white road. So you could have a white road, you could have a brown road, you could have a gray road. Your road could change colors. That's fine. We could add depth to our road. I'm just gonna go with the flow here. So pick and choose a color that appeals to you, that you're inspired to use. Because everyone in these classes, your paintings are all going to look a little different, which we saw from part 1. So there may be certain colors or tones that you're more leaning towards than others, and it may not be a color I'm using. So just know it's always okay to use whatever color you want, or hue or tone that works best for you. So I'm just gonna, and I'm using a small brush just because it's what I have in my hand. So I'm just brightening up my road a little bit. I might add a little bit of gray to it. I haven't decided yet. I'm keeping a little bit of that yellow undertone coming in so the road has a little bit of depth technique to it. A little bit of a depth look. See how it goes here. And I'm not using any water on my brush. You could if you wanted to. But I'm just doing some long, smooth brush strokes as I kind of wrap my way around this road. Okay. My cows are almost dry, so I'm just gonna do another quick coat of white on my cows. I'm very eager to paint those black spots on my cows. You could definitely do brown too if you wanted to. Absolutely up to you. These legs could be a little longer in the back. Let's see if I can make them a little longer. Now these are tiny little cows. Maybe we'll do cows as a class at some point. That could be really fun if anybody's interested in doing cows. But if you have any questions throughout the class, definitely let me know. You're welcome to reach out to me through our Patreon app or through our YouTube page. You're welcome to comment below on our YouTube space. I get notifications for Patreon and YouTube. So just let me know how I can support you with any details. Or even if you did something fun and unique and different, I would love to hear and see what you did. It's always fun to see what your creative brain has come up with for our art classes. Now, if I have a lot of yellow buffer around some of these cows, I can always touch that up with a little bit of green after. But my goal right now is to have my cows just be nice and filled in white, which they are now. They could be sheep as well. They absolutely could be sheep, but I'm going to do them as cows. Excuse me. So I'm going to let those dry. I'm not sure if I'm done my barn yet or not. I feel like it needs something. I don't know what it needs. It could probably use like a little bit of like a dark red for some shading. So if I feel overzealous, I'll probably add a little bit of dark red to my barn. But I'm just going to finish my background of my field area. So while my cows are drying and I do my black spots, I'm going to finish the background color down here. And for me, it was important to use, I wanted to use more green down here to have it be more of a green field versus the brown. So I'm just going to put a little bit more green on top. Just to brighten it. And I'm layering it right on top. Now I'm doing a really thin coat of green, because I have water on my brush. So you're going to see brush strokes. It may be a little more thin. If you wanted to use a thicker green paint, you're welcome to. I'm just going with the flow, really. So what I want you to consider for, some of your final work is like, I want you to be happy with some of these background colors down here. And then we're going to I might add some wildflowers and a little bit of other detail within this bottom field space. Haven't quite decided yet. I just wanted to get some of the background color done first. And I'm going to put a little bit more green paint on. That's a little more solid. Because I see lots of brush strokes, but I really want just a little bit more green paint itself. So I'm just going to add a little bit more green paint. And if I need to let it dry, I can. If you want to touch up any of these little bushes, you can. See, I added some more green down here. I'm going to add a little bit more here. This is like a grass green. It's fairly bright. All my other colors are fairly dark and organic looking. So I'm just going to blend this in a little bit. And I can do some long, smooth brush strokes from one side to the other to kind of get this all to match. I'll put a little bit of this green here just to match the sequence. So again, matching colors to make the scene look just a little bit more uniform. I'm just adding in some of this more pitchy green here. And I'm just dabbing some in under this hillside and just using my brush with nice smooth brush strokes. Again, you might already be done this area, but I am just kind of finishing it for where I think I want to be happy here. So I'm just adding in a little bit more green here within this space. And I like the contrast, but I just want to add a little bit more of this, a little more life, green life here to my darker browns and green area. There. And I'm just going to have it match. So I'm just going to bring some of this green up here a little bit. Just a little bit, maybe just do a little smudging. And I'm just gonna kind of pause and just check and see if I want to add it a little bit more of this green. Maybe I'll put a little bit of this green under some of these cows. I don't know, I'm just having fun. Smudging it around a little bit. I don't want the cows to be playing in mud. I'd prefer them to be in grass. Lush grass. So there's a little bit of that green. I'm just going to tuck a little bit of that green in here. Again, I'm just trying to have it all match visually. Uh-oh, I don't want green on my cow. That would be bad. All right, so you can see I brought a little bit of green up here. I just want it to be blended as much as possible. There. You can keep working on this. So I wanted to add a few of those details. So for me, I've finished kind of the background areas and I have this zoomed down so you can see some of these details, but I'll zoom back out in a few minutes. I'm gonna have fun with my cow spots now. So I'm gonna put a little tiny bit of black on my palette, or on my paper plate. So a little spot of black will go a long way. And just finding a small brush that you can use the tip. So you're not using the whole brush, you're not doing big spots, right? You're just using the tip of the brush to do tiny little dotting techniques. So I have a tiny little brush here. Ooh, this paint is not mixed. There we go. And again, having a paper towel on hand is always very helpful. And I'm going to do cow spots. I'm going to do their bodies first, and then we'll do their face together. Now, cows, you can have like black kind of come down their forehead. You can have white come down their forehead. It doesn't matter. Just have a couple spots on their legs. You can have big spots or little spots. Obviously, these aren't cheetahs, so you pick and choose here how big or small, but I'm just doing different size, different spots. They can be connecting too. Doesn't matter too much. Just do some spots and let it dry and come back to it. I might do some lines coming down. This cow right here. See, I just did like a little face. You could outline like the nostrils and the nose if you wanted to. But again, Spots on cows can be large spots, they could be patchy. This cow's lying down. And if I don't like any of these spots, guess what? I can just cover them up. I can paint them and cover them up. I'm outlining some of their ears to help with some of the structure. That's optional. If you wanted to outline their face a little bit, you could. Optional. If you wanted to draw in some of their legs or arms to help give them more structure, you could. You could make some of those choices. I wasn't going to get too detailed on the cows, so we'll just see how it goes here. I was trying to be a little bit more abstract on the shapes. And again, I can always touch this up with some white paint. So if I need to reshape or take away or add to some of this detail, I can. And if it helps you to look at different spot techniques and designs by just Googling, you know, a painted cow, you can look at some of that. I don't have that in front of me right now. I'm just freehanding it, but just doing different spots here and there. It's up to you if you want to do this outlining technique, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Just gonna let my cows dry. I probably have some touch-up work to do, but this is all for fun, so I'm not striving for perfection in that regard. I am going to put a little bit of this crimson red and add a little shading to my barn, just a little bit. So maybe just adding a little bit of a contrasting red. Maybe I'll mix a little crimson with a little bit of black. If you wanted to do a little bit of shading on your barn. If you can put a little bit of shading on your roof. Absolutely up to you. If you want to put a little bit of shading on the front panels. I'm just adding in a little bit of a secondary contrast to the barn to add a little bit of texture. So you can play with how and where you may want to add that. I'll probably add a little water on my brush and kind of blend this color in a little bit. And I'm not doing it any one way. I'm doing a little horizontal brush strokes and doing a little vertical. I'm just making it look a little more weathered versus just a flat red barn. So I'm just using crimson, which is a darker red, and a little bit of black. So if you need to make a color like this, you can. And if you want to soften it with like a little regular red, you can just play with how you blend these colors together. So for me, I'm mixing the two and just, I want to be happy with the solid color. So I might be playful with a little bit of the dark red and a little bit of the regular red. And you can see on the edging, it's a little different, and that's okay. This is a rustic style painting for me. So as an artist, you kind of figure out your style and approach as you go. And you make choices, right? Around how you want it to be. And that's where artists get stuck sometimes. They're like, they say to themselves, I'm not sure if I'm done yet, right? You probably hear that a lot. Or you may say that to yourself if you feel like you want to keep working on it. Well, there's something else I want to add to it. I don't know what it is. Or the barn doesn't look quite right yet. I want to spend a little more time there. And sometimes by playing with darker or lighter colors, maybe you modify the shape, all the possibilities. This is where you're playful. So for me, I wanted to just play with that bright red that I had and add a little bit of a darker contrast to the barn. I'm just smoothing in different shades. And if I need to do any touch-up work with my white, which I will, I'll do a little bit, I can do that after. And you can spend, again, as much or as little time as you wish here. Well, my cows are hanging out. I'm not sure how I feel about my cows yet, but I'm just going to let them sit there and think about themselves. I'm going to clean off my brushes. I'm going to zoom this up and back so we can just see the whole canvas. So I have my sky, I have my mountains, I have the barn. The barn really stands out for me. It might need a little more contrast. I'm not sure what it needs yet, but I might just think about it. There's a couple extra details that you can consider for your painting. I'm going to let my road dry. Right now it's fine for me. But let me pull up the original inspiration and see what other items we could consider. So there's some fun white field grass or flowers that we could add in. You can pick and choose and decide what elements that you may want to incorporate. I feel like if I add any tall grass, it would be like darker tall grass with like a little bit of white here and there to add some tall field grass look like. I could bring in a little bit of like red flowers tucked in to match the red barn. So I'm going to be a little, I'm gonna do something kind of outside the box here. Hi, Asher. Yep, you can come down. My 5-year-old's coming down to say hi. I'm gonna mix a little bit of a dark green together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add in some tall green grass. So I'm just gonna mix around my black a little bit. I'm gonna put a little bit more black paint. Nope, but you can watch. Would you like to watch? I have people listening, so we have to be a little quiet, okay? Okay. So I'm gonna take my green and my black, and I'm gonna make just like a darker green. And I have a really skinny brush here, and I'm just gonna do some tall green grass.
Good idea.
Good idea. Oh, I have approval from my 5-year-old. Terrific. So I have a long skinny brush and I have a dark green paint. I'm just gonna be brave and I'm just gonna start to put in a little bit of tall grass. Now maybe I put a little water on my brush. I'm just gonna try and see what it looks like. I love kind of being the guinea pig and just with a really light hand, I'm just gonna bring in a little bit of texture. I don't know what this is gonna look like. So I'm just being a little brave here, but I'm just going to do a few clusters of tall grass kind of tucked in. Now, sometimes it can be a little scary to continue to add where you have something you might like. But this is where you can bloom as an artist. I'm going really light-handed. You can manage if you're I'm coming down this peninsula here and I'm getting a little shorter as I come down and I'm going really light-handed. And I'm kind of alternating from the left to the right. I don't know where I'm going yet with this, but this is just, it's adding a little texture to this field, which is something I feel like I want. Maybe I just do some shorter grass in here. I don't know yet. I'm just really being open-minded to how my art evolves here. Maybe I'll do a little bit here. Just a couple tall patches. 1 second, baby.
Oh,
How many more minutes? I don't know. Well, sometimes you just don't know, Asher, when you paint.
you can't think when you're painting.
You can think when you're painting, but sometimes you just have to like see how it goes, you know? So I'm just doing some tall grass here. I like that it's additional texture. Like for me, I needed that, and it's different texture. It's this bush-like, and then I'm adding a little bit of this tall grass on top. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of the oranges in here may look kind of neat. I could do little dots for flowers, maybe. I'm not sure yet. But you can just do some bends. So finding a small brush that works for you. I am dipping a little bit of water in this and I'm mixing it around in here. And spinning my brush so it has a nice fine point. But kind of pausing and reflecting as you go about what you're adding and where is really helpful. So you can you do a little planning, right? About how much and the height of your grass, the angles, where it bends to the left and where it bends to the right, where it may get a little shorter, right? Maybe you just have like a few little shorter grass blades that kind of trickle over to the right. You don't need all high grass blades. So I'm just doing a few little ones here. Maybe this is a part of the field that they just forget to mow, right? If you think about cornfields or fields, some of the areas, there's big rocks in this space, and maybe they just couldn't make it in this area, right? This is definitely making it look a little more natural, and I'm just doing some short brush strokes. And this is one of the magical things about fields in New England is, especially during the fall, who notices those beautiful yellow flowers, beautiful purple flowers that pop up on the sides of the road. This is all the beautiful Vermont wildflowers that just happen to appear in the fall, and it's so pretty. So I might tuck in a few wildflowers into some of this. Maybe that's part of my inspiration. I'm not sure. But maybe some of those wildflowers have a little bit of red, maybe a little purple, maybe a little bit of that foliage yellow, right? Kind of neat. So I'm just doing a little bit here and a little bit there. You can decide on where you might want to add some of this texture. You may not like what I'm doing. It's okay. I am just really, again, being in the moment, having fun with it. Sometimes it's fun to do something a little different. And you can create little layers. So I'm doing a little layering here. You can do little dots. You can do lots of little grass. You can have gaps. Sometimes you just have to see how it goes. So I'm adding maybe like little dots and dashes in here to kind of help round and stabilize some of these areas. This is like layering within the texture. So if you need to ground some of the grass, if the grass looks like it's floating, add a little bit of a grounding layer to the bottom of the grass to make it look a little more substantial. Like if it looks like a bunch of little lines, you can
This
just,
is what you paint.
yeah, this is it. And you can add just a little bit more grounding to the bottom, like where the grass is coming up from the ground. Yep, exactly. 5-year-olds are so curious of what we're doing. All right. And then, see all the grass, Asher? Do those look like cows or sheep to you?
Sheep.
No, they are cows.
Right.
Sometimes cows take a little practice, don't they? Maybe they're white and black sheep. They could be white and black sheep too, right? Because they're not perfectly rectangular. They're a little round. Maybe that's why Asher thinks that they look like sheep. It's okay. They could be sheep if they want to be. So I'm just added in some of that texture. I'm gonna do a little bit more down here. See, I'm just doing,
Monster yet.
nope. And I'm just adding a little bit more of this here. So it all matches.
Wait, what is that? Oh, that's
I'm just gonna add a little bit more down here. And then I may add in, and you could do white flowers down here too. That could look really neat. Just like little white spots here and there. White would be a great contrast because it would match the cows. So maybe I'll do like a little bit of golden and I'll do a little bit of white just to see what it looks like. Excuse me. Maybe you have more grass in different areas than I do. In the inspiration, it has lots of different grass in areas. And maybe I come in and add more after, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm just adding in a little bit of grass. And I have a little water on my brush. You can see the more water I have, the softer the color it is. It's not like a dark green pigment. It's a lighter pigment color. Maybe I'll just bring the grass up on the bottom a little bit over here. So I'm just gonna let it dry. I might be a little courageous here and put some little white flowers, little white tops on some of these just to see how it looks. So just to, not sure how it's gonna look yet, but I'm just gonna tuck in a few white flowers on some of these stalks. And again, I love being the guinea pig. I love just kind of going for it. And it gives you an option to say, oh, I like that, or no, Megan, I definitely don't like that. It's just a kind of a fun way for you to visualize what yours could look like if you wanted to add some of these details. I'm just doing little tiny dots and clusters in certain areas. For me, the white is tying into the road. It's tying into the white barn details. It's tying into the sheep or cows, whatever type of animal I have going on here. And these kind of look like there's a lot of wispy white flowers that pop up in the fall too. There's those purple ones that are just spectacular. But sometimes there's those white ones too that pop up on the roadsides or in fields. I'm just using the tip of the brush and I'm just doing like a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, kind of alternating on the tips and on even on the middles of some of these. I could definitely add some more grass to make it look like a little bit more breezy, right? Like it's blowing in the wind. There's a lot more substance of grass. I could definitely use more substance. I could come in and add more of that. Some of my grass looks stick-like. It means I just need to have more. So I could come in and add more and I could layer it right on top of what I have. So I'm just talking through some details so you can make some choices on what you may want to add to yours. And again, it's all about how much time you want to invest in your painting tonight. I did want to spend a little time with you just to kind of get you over the edge of just some of these details that you could consider. But you can see it's really coming together as a scene, right? You will make those choices of what details you want to add and where. In all of my classes, I'll be here to provide you examples, but always just follow your gut. Some of you may have added different details in the foreground. I just kind of have a smattering of little flowers, just using the tip of my brush, just tucked in different places. But it all looks like it's the same place, right? It's all matching, right? I do want to try adding a little bit of like a yellow, I'm not sure, or yellowy orange flower. I'm not sure if it's going to show up or not, but I'm going to try. Sometimes it's just worth trying. I'm going to put this up here and I'm going to mix a little yellow, red, and white together to make kind of like an orange color. So let's just mix a little yellow and red to get an orange first. And I'll do this with you so you can see it. And I'll probably add a little bit of white to it. You need a little bit of white added to this so it stands out on top of the greens and the yellows for the fields. So I'm looking for like a golden foliage fall color. This is kind of an orange, so we'll see if this works or not. Might be a nice, it's kind of a peachy color. I probably want to add a little bit more yellow, but let me see what this looks like. And I'm just going to do a little bit of, oh, you can barely see it, but it's kind of neat. You can see I'm adding just a little bit of like an orangey flower look. I'm going to add a little bit more white and I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to make it a little brighter. Now you could do like daisy-like flowers, which I could try adding some of those in. Hey, might as well. Let's see if I can get this a little more yellow. I have a small brush. Let's see if I can try that. It's not yellow enough. And I probably want it to be quite a bit lighter too, to be honest. So I'm going to make it more yellow and add a little bit more white. Now, again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm just playing with the idea that I have. And this is what I encourage, again, you to do is play or consider an idea you may have of your own. And I've taught a lot of these classes and many of you are thinking, well, I'm really not sure if I want to add any more, Megan. Like that comes up a lot. Or I may want to spend a little more time doing this. So whatever is coming up for you right now, resonating for you, you just do you. May not be what I'm doing. That's okay. I'm just going to tuck in a few little yellow flowers in my field. They may not look like flowers. They just may be like little petal, like 1, 2, 3, just tucked in. But for me, these are flowers in my brain. And I'm doing them on top of the green, so the darker green, so they stand out a little bit more. You can see I'm just kind of tucking them in. The focus is really bad. So you see I'm just tucking in a few of these flowers. Just kind of on this hillside a little bit. They're little clusters, and it's for me, my interpretation as an artist is it's just an abstract yellow golden flower that's tucked in to the scene. So I am being playful with turning this into a really fun field with just a few wildflowers just tucked in, whether they're oranges or yellows. In the inspiration, it was like a brown and reds with white, like grass coming up. If you recall the inspiration, you could add white grass here if you wanted to. But with these classes, we always start with an inspiration, and if you like exactly what's on the inspiration, you go for that. But it's just about using it as, I like the composition, I like the concept of this work, and making it your own. And that's one of the most fun things about art is we get inspired by others. And many of you in this class, you get inspired by others. And that's why we're here, right? Because we like how art makes us feel, it gives us a break. We learn something new. We meet some really great people along the way. So I'm happy with how my field came out. It's quite fun. You're going to figure out what additional details you may want to do for your painting. My cows aren't perfect. It might take a little bit of white and do some touch-up work on my cows. They could be a little more boxy, right? So I could use my white to reshape them or change some of the black, right? So white is a really great way of reshaping a cow or changing the form or modifying the dotting, right? The spots on the cow. So I might spend a few minutes on that. But besides that, we're all set and all done. When you finish your work, I would encourage you to post and share it within our Patreon app. We always love seeing your work and your progress along the way. And everybody's always comes out so different. So it's very inspiring to all of us to see how your interpretation was of our artwork today. I'm going to make my cows a little more boxy since my 5-year-old called them sheep. It's okay. I don't take that personally, by the way. Your kids and yourself, you can be your biggest critics. But he saw sheep, which is fine. But Sharon, you're here with us live for part 2. How is your experience in some of these final details?
I'm grateful that you decided to do it together.
Oh, good. Oh, here's Susan. Nice. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, the recording. If folks have questions, please let me know. But thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing your work.